Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Kirtland Temple and will the church be able to purchase it. And we're also going to talk about Independence, Missouri. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you end up liking it, hit the notification bell, and leave your comments with your opinions, sources, and anything you want to say. So I came across this article yesterday in the Salt Lake Tribune, talking about are we going to have the chance to purchase the Kirtland Temple? And let's get into it. So in 2017, the church bought the printer's manuscript of the Book of Mormon from the Community of Christ for $35 million. Now, if you're not familiar with it, the Community of Christ, they are a breakoff from the church. They used to be called the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or RLDS, but they changed their name to Community of Christ. And they're not really all too similar to us, but they own a lot of original property and different things from the early days of the church. Their church has 250,000 members and about 1,100 congregations in 59 countries. So they're much smaller than our church. They only have one temple, and they currently have, well, no, I guess they have the Kirtland Temple, and then they have the temple that they built in Independence. So we're going to get into that, but that's the Community of Christ, right? So 2017, we bought the printer's manuscript of the Book of Mormon for $35 million from them. That sparked the question, at least in the mind of Times and Seasons blogger Stephen Cranny. So this information is coming from him, from his blog, and I'm going to include all the links in the description below, so you can visit his blog, visit all these websites that we're about to visit. Of what else the Missouri-based church might be willing to sell to the much larger, much richer Utah-based faith. Our church, the LDS Church, or sorry, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm sorry, President Nelson. I'm sorry. Old habits, they're hard to break. After all, the Community of Christ, formerly known as the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, flatly stated in its December 2020 financial update that its presiding bishopric continues to evaluate potential historic asset sales. So they are potentially looking for money, and that includes selling off their historical assets, right? I'm going to go directly to, what's his name again? Stephen Cranny's blog right here. And I'd encourage you to visit it. Looks like it's a source of some pretty good information. So I just kind of went through this, highlighted some things I thought were interesting. After his death, various branches legally fight over ownership of the Kirtland Temple. The ones who end up winning the prize are a small, numerically marginal branch known as the Church of Christ Temple Lot. That's talking about the site where Joseph Smith indicated that the future millennial temple would be built for the New Jerusalem, right? It's the temple lot. Whatever the case, with the temple lot, it looks like the Hedrickites. Okay, so sorry, I should explain what this branch is. So the Church of Christ Temple Lot. Okay, if we go to this map right here, no, let's go over here. Okay, so this right here, this is the original site that was identified by Joseph Smith for the site of the future temple. Okay, now in this area, there's 3 LDS church branches, or branches from the original church that own property in this area. So we have the Community of Christ, and they built their like spiral temple right here, and so this is like their Salt Lake temple, and then over here you have their auditorium, so I guess that's kind of like their tabernacle or conference center. So you have the Community of Christ, and then over here we have land. We have a visitor center. We also have the stake center right here. And I'm going to talk more about this property because I found out some interesting things about it. So, Community of Christ, and then you have our church, and then you have this tiny little church right here, and they're called the Church of Christ Temple Lot. They added the Temple Lot to the end of it to distinguish themselves from the other Church of Christ. So, the Church of Christ Temple Lot. And these guys are much, 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 much smaller. So it looks like, okay, it's notable for its sole ownership of the temple lot. So the Church of Christ temple lot are the ones that actually own the piece of land where the temple is supposed to go. That was identified by Joseph Smith. It's this tiny little church that owns that piece of land, which it has held for 150 years. As of 2013, I don't know what it is now. I didn't get that deep into it, but as of 2013, membership is 7,310 members in 11 countries, which I find surprising. Most of the members live in the United States, but there are parishes in Canada, Mexico, Honduras, Nigeria, Kenya, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Malawi, Tanzania, India, and the Philippines. So they have a total of 32 congregations. So this tiny little church with their tiny little headquarters right here, they own a really important piece of property. Now, I am one that believes that this is the site of the New Jerusalem and where the future temple will be built. I've mentioned many times that there's other people that think that it's actually going to be in Salt Lake and that's going to be the site of the New Jerusalem, and I don't really tend to believe that. I'm going to keep my mind open. I mean, anything's possible, but I don't see really any evidence that Salt Lake would become the New Jerusalem. And I'm going to go over some of that too here. Some pretty solid things that would indicate that plans have not changed, that this is going to be the site of the New Jerusalem. So, it's an interesting setup, right? We have the Community of Christ that owns the Kirtland Temple. We have the Church of Christ Temple Lot that owns this piece of land where the future temple is supposed to be built. So we have these two different churches that own some pretty important things to us. And of course, it's important to them too. But it does seem like things may be changing, and we might get some of it back, potentially. So let's continue on in this blog. So the Church of Christ Temple Lot are also known as the Hedrikites. Okay. Whatever the case, the temple lot, whatever the case with the temple lot, it looks like the Hedrikites are comfortably ensconced there. I've never seen that word in my life. Ensconced there. Have no plans to sell anytime soon. And fulfilling that particular interpretation of that prophecy, it is not terribly high on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints list of priorities right now. Most prominently, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints broke the record for most paid for a manuscript when they purchased the printer's manuscript of the Book of Mormon from the Community of Christ for $35 million. However, the market for LDS religious sites provides an interesting game theoretic situation with one seller and one buyer. Although the buyer has the resources, purchasing those particular properties might not be high on the list of priorities as long as the seller is taking care of them and allowing access. So basically, right now, those properties and those things, they're they're taking care of them. They're not doing anything with them. We have access to them to be able to go and visit, and we don't have to spend any money to upkeep it. So yeah, maybe it's not so much a priority right now. The seller also presumably still feels some historical connection to the site, and the sites may also provide a revenue stream. Ultimately, I believe the deciding factor will probably be the financial situation of the seller. So what's the situation? A financial contraction is looming as their tithe payers pass away. And this is talking about the community of Christ. So I guess as the church is getting older, tithe payers are starting to pass away, and there's less and less revenue coming into the church for the community of Christ. And I would assume the same would probably be true of the Church of Christ Temple lot. I mean, it's an even smaller church, and but I don't know. Maybe I can research that sometime. However, in the meantime, they need to come up with $32 million to plug the hole in their unfunded pension liabilities, which they'll probably not be able to pull off just by living frugally. Finally, in the 2020 report, they noted that they were open to selling additional historical assets. And hopefully one of those will be the Kirtland Temple. That would be so amazing if we could get the Kirtland Temple back. And I don't know if the church would ever like remodel it so that it would be like modern temples, so that we could have endowment sessions there and be able to do initiatories and baptisms for the dead. But either way, it would just be amazing to have that back and then have it rededicated. That would just be one of the best things ever, in my opinion. The Community of Christ report raises the possibility of growth coming from the younger cohort. Although this guy that does this blog, he says, I'm skeptical given the sociological realities. And I would agree. He's talking about how the rising generation is, it's becoming less and less religious from older generations. So there shouldn't really be any difference with the community of Christ as far as that goes. Religion is kind of, it's taking a lot of hits right now, and the world is becoming more and more secular. And with this small of a church, these guys only being 250,000 strong, maybe it won't be sustainable. So it's interesting, because I was thinking about this. I haven't thought about this until just today when I was researching for this this video. So we all know that there's the big situation in the world right now with the Temple Mount, right? And the Jews want to build their third temple in this exact spot right here on the Temple Mount. But the problem is that it's under the custody of Jordan. The last I believe it's Jordan that is the custodian of the temple lot. And so they can't really do anything right now. I don't know what it would take for them to be able to build here. Now, there is a theory, and I actually think that it's a really good theory. I should have pulled this up. Let me pull up the map here. Jerusalem. And you've probably heard this before. Maybe not. There's YouTube videos about it. That sorry. Gosh. Temple Mount, Jerusalem. There we go. So there is a theory that's being put forth, and it's not too popular, but I know there's a lot of people that do follow it, that this location down here, this little kind of neighborhood of Jerusalem. What just happened? Sorry. Temple Mount Jerusalem. Why did that happen? Okay, I guess I'm not allowed to look at the map anymore. So anyway, there's been a theory put forth that this site right here, the Temple Mount location, this was actually the fortress Antonia built by the Romans when they occupied Jerusalem. Because it's a really, really large structure, and it's large enough to house a Roman division. and that the actual site of the temple was in the city of David. And I'm not going to go into that in this video, but you should take a look into that. It seems like the Jews don't really believe that, though. I don't know if, like, they ever will, or if it's even right. They still maintain that what's traditionally known as the Temple Mount, will be the site of the third temple. But so they're trying to get that built. They have all the things made for the temple, like all the instruments for the rituals. They have the altar that they've already consecrated. They have everything. They have everything ready to go. The clothes, all of it. They're just waiting for, I guess, the opportunity to present itself, right? So it's interesting that that's going on right now, as we are also waiting for our temple, or at least the temple here in the Americas, to be built. And we can't do it right now because there's another religion that owns that piece of land, right? So in Jerusalem right now, it's the Muslims that have control of the Temple Mount. And then in our case, to build the temple for the new Jerusalem, we have this tiny little church that owns this piece of land. So I don't know. I'm sure that the Lord has had a hand in that in some way. I don't know if he's I don't know if it's been his purpose to have these other religions hold this spot until the time comes to build the temple. Or I don't know if it's just because of, wickedness that he allows these other religions to occupy these sacred spaces. But I find it very interesting. It's another just similarity between our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the Jews, right? Let me see if I can pull that up one more time. Temple Mount, Jerusalem. Please work. So I'm not going to do the satellite image, but anyway, just going back to my other thing that I was talking about. Here's the city of David. I don't think it's an actual city. It's just like a tiny little area. It's more of like a neighborhood of Jerusalem, right up against the old city. But this is where some people think that the original temple would have been, and that the Fortress Antonia is what's up here. This large complex area where the Dome of the Rock currently is. So it's interesting, though, and I'm sure that you've already seen this before, but there's also the similarity between our church and the Jews, where Jerusalem's here, you have the Dead Sea, and then you have the River Jordan right here that connects to a body of fresh water over here. And then when you hop on over to Utah, it's basically the same thing, just upside down. And if you compared it side by side, if you flip this upside down and compared it, even Salt Lake City itself is in the same relative location as Jerusalem would be to the Dead Sea. And then, of course, we have the River Jordan that connects Utah Lake to the Great Salt Lake. Well, and another thing that I find interesting is, so down here we have Cedar City, and over in Israel, you've heard it said, the phrase, the cedars of Lebanon, right? And that's the same thing. Like, if we, this would be the Great Salt Lake, this would be Utah Lake, and then as you headed south, you would come to Cedar City, or you would come to Lebanon. So it's just an interesting thing. So anyway, that's probably too much of a tangent. So it's just interesting parallels that we have to the Jews, both geographically, and then as far as our temples, right? The third temple in Jerusalem, and then the temple for the new Jerusalem here on the temple lot, both being occupied and preventing us from building occupied by a different religion and preventing us from building the temple that we need to build in these locations. So is that what's going to make it so that we can eventually purchase that land? Is it going to be because they're not going to be able to afford it anymore because their membership is going down and the younger generation is less religious and they're just going to essentially dissolve? I don't know. We'll just have to keep our eyes on it and see, and we'll just see what happens. All right, so the remainder of this video is mostly focused on Jackson County and the temple lot and just some things that I found out. So now this Church of Christ temple lot, they did try to build a temple there 80 years ago, okay, but they failed. By 1943, the temple lot church abandoned the project, and it ended up being like there was a big pit and they had to fill it back in, and then all they have now is just their this little chapel here that's on the temple lot. The Community of Christ, formerly the LDS Church, completed its first and only temple in 1994. And of course, they own the Kirtland temple, but the temple that you could attribute directly to the Community of Christ would be the spiral temple right here, and that's what that's talking about. On another plot within Edward Partridge's original 63-acre purchase, they would interpret the building of their temple to be the fulfillment of the prophecy of Joseph Smith and the temple that will be raised there. So I guess to the Community of Christ, this right here really isn't an issue. The original temple lot, this is the temple that satisfies Joseph Smith's prophecy. So to them, here it is right here. Okay. Now, this right here, I would recommend reading this whole thing. I'm not going to be able to do it in this video, but this is an article put out by the Interpreter Foundation, and it's recent as of this year. So now they have this little section here talking about the visitor center that we have, right? Going back to this map, we got the LDS Independence Visitor Center right here, just catty corner to the temple lot. The property purchased by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 1904 remained undeveloped until 1968, which I don't know, for some reason I just think that's kind of interesting that just nothing was really going on there. And this is kind of like the first hint or the first validation that the New Jerusalem really will be built in Independence, Missouri. If the church was going to just go ahead and call Salt Lake the New Jerusalem, I don't know why they would hold on to this property, right? And for those that think that New Jerusalem is going to be in Salt Lake, I guess they would argue that, that's like a forthcoming revelation, or it just hasn't been officially revealed yet. But I just don't think so, because I feel like it's a magnificent waste of property and money, and it just doesn't make too much sense to me. December 1967 for the present Visitors Center. What? Okay. After two different attempts over the years by the City of Independence / Board of Education to purchase the property from the church, and concerned about the reality of eminent domain, that's where a city can just forcibly take land from you. And it's usually used when they're going to build like a road or something like that, but it can be used for other things too. I learned that when I was in college. By the City of Independence, the church made an announcement in December 1967 for the present Visitors Center. Right. So as of 1967, they wanted to hold on to that property. So if it wasn't important to the church, if they weren't worried about the eminent domain and having the land taken from them, they wouldn't have used the money to build this visitor center, right? So it's a clear indication that at least back then, the church was still intent on its future in this location in terms of building the temple and building New Jerusalem. Plans were quickly developed and formally approved in April 1968. A groundbreaking ceremony was held the following August. Interestingly, in the development of those plans in early 1967, the church architect, Emil Fetzer, and with input directly from Alvin R. Dyer and approval by President David O. McKay, the awareness of the Joseph Smith-inspired, expanded 24-temple complex prepared in early 1833 was definitely taken into consideration. Okay? It was definitely taken into consideration. And if you're not familiar with the New Jerusalem, there's supposed to be the main temple, which is part of a 24-temple complex. You can research that later, or maybe I'll do a video on it, but it's really kind of, it's going to be interesting whenever it's built. On March 10th, 1967, a meeting of Dyer and Fetzer was held with McKay in his Hotel Utah apartment office. Dyer recorded the highlights of this session in his diary. All right, check this out. Look, we reported to the president that our study in this direction was to undertake, if we could, to ascertain which of the temple buildings designated would presumably be located on that part of the temple land that the church owned. This we had arrived at and would be concentrated upon for the erection of a building for the purpose intended, the basic structure of which could be used used at a future date as part of the temple complex. As part of the temple complex. So as they were planning this out, this visitor center, they were thinking about where the various temples would be built as part of the temple complex. So David O. McKay was thinking about that. All right. Dyer continued, the proposed structure would be 2 stories high with a floor dimension of 61 by 87 feet, which dimension is the same as revealed to the prophet Joseph as the size of the complex buildings. That is just, I mean, what else could you say? I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. All right, so Church of Christ. Here's another map here, just kind of a different angle, the different structures and stuff. Here's this big parcel of land right here that we own, the Church of Christ right here, and then up here, and then the Church of Christ temple lot right there, with a tiny little corner right here, United Nations Peace Monument. I don't know about that. Okay, Church of Christ. In 1952, there were rumors that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had offered a large sum of money, perhaps $1 million, for the 2 3/4 acres owned by the Church of Christ. And again, this is Church of Christ temple lot, so the little church. Historian and author Craig S. Campbell interviewed Apostle William Sheldon in December 1990 regarding those rumors. 1990. Sheldon told Campbell that at one time, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints offered us a blank check for the property. Beginning in 2005, I had the pleasure and opportunity to meet with Apostle Sheldon on many occasions. At one such occurrence, I asked him, what amount would it take for the Church of Christ to sell the temple lot? His answer, you could offer us $1 million or a postage stamp. We will not take either. On another occasion, I asked Sheldon a question regarding the church's position on trying, again, to build the Millennial Temple on their property. He replied, the temple was not a core objective of the church, and added, the primary focus of the church is missionary work and building up the kingdom of God. Sheldon also stated, "The Church of Christ considers as their sacred duty to be not only the physical custodian of the property, the temple lot, but additionally, and more importantly, the spiritual custodian of the kingdom of God." So, it would seem that there have been attempts to purchase the temple lot, which I think just further indicates that yes, that is the site of the New Jerusalem. It will be. All right, moving on to the RLDS, or as they're called now, the Community of Christ. Here's their temple right here. The Community of Christ takes the position that the church has built the temple in the center place, quote unquote, as envisioned by Joseph Smith in 1831. In accordance to revelatory instruction given to the prophet President W. Wallace Smith and to his successor, Prophet President Wallace B. Smith, the plot of ground set apart for this purpose by my servant Joseph Smith Jr. was selected for building my temple in the center place. The temple was dedicated in April 1994. At the time of the groundbreaking ceremony in 1990, wanting to clarify the church's position regarding the millennium, Smith stated to a reporter, "We're not building our temple as a means of signaling the second coming." Okay, now on to our church. During the past 50 or 60 years, little has been said by authorities of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints regarding the redemption of Zion, the city of New Jerusalem, the millennium, or the temple, or temples to be built in the center place. Perhaps the most written commentary on the subjects relative to this discussion of the events relating to the city of New Jerusalem and the Millennium Temple are found in Bruce R. McConkie's Mormon Doctrine in 1958. It is to be built by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Jackson County, Missouri, is the spot designated by Revelation for its construction. It shall be built when the Lord directs. It will be built in Jackson County. All right, in 1972, this is Alvin R. Dyer. Dyer emphasized that the prophetic history and future of the area is a vital subject to every Latter-day Saint. And come what may, in the time of the Lord, we, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, have a committed destiny in the center place. Okay, now moving on to 1976. Now, this was put out during the bicentennial celebration of the United States. It was a pamphlet. The Great Prologue, A Prophetic History and Destiny of America. The great modern city of New Jerusalem will be built in Jackson County, Missouri. He added, "It is the center of the land. It is the center of the land, and there the city of Zion, or the New Jerusalem, will be built, a place of refuge and peace for the latter days." 3 years later, in 1979, the church quietly edited its 10th article of faith. Prior to this date, it had declared, quote, that Zion will be built upon this, the American continent. Okay, so that's what it originally said. And then it was edited to say that Zion, the New Jerusalem, will be built upon the American continent. While some may dismiss this rewording as a long overdue edit, or nothing more than a simple clarification, the fact that the name of the millennial city of New Jerusalem was added to the language specifically, and shortly after the publication of the Great Prologue, certainly signified that the church had not discounted or distanced itself from the early revelations given to the prophet Joseph Smith in 1830 and 1831. Rather, the church subtly added significance to this tenet of basic beliefs. During the 20th and 21st centuries, the church has continued to quietly acquire land, not only in Jackson County, but throughout western Missouri. And that is quite interesting. Here you have the Kansas City, Missouri temple. Despite church growth, the Kansas City area remains a paradox of the LDS realm. Some say that hesitation is bred of uncertainty, but the LDS Church does not want to cause undue millenarian speculation and unrest among the members. Okay. Nearly 40 years later, after dedicating the visitor center and to meet the needs of a growing church membership surrounding 3-state area, the church announced plans to construct a temple in the Kansas City vicinity on October 4th, 2008. The groundbreaking ceremony took place on May 8th, 2010. An impressive dedication ceremony occurred on May 6, 2012. Rather than utilizing the 26 acres purchased in 1904, the church built the temple near the city of Liberty in Clay County, 12 miles north of Independence and across the Missouri River. However, as those who listened to the October 2020 General Conference will attest, there has never been in recent memory more prophetic emphasis on the topics of the gathering of Israel and the work of preparing ourselves and the world for the second coming of the Lord. We are in very interesting times. Final thought. So what else is required? How is it going to be obtained? And perhaps most importantly, what further direction will the forthcoming regarding the Millennial Temple in the city of New Jerusalem, regarding the ultimate fulfillment implied in the adage, redemption of Zion? Perhaps the statement of Apostle William Sheldon from the Church of Christ is applicable to all of the expressions of the restoration. He said, "We simply await the Lord's further direction." His thoughts are not much different from those of Bruce R. McConkie, who wrote in 1958, referring to the New Jerusalem and its attendant Millennial Temple. It shall be built when the Lord directs. One thing is certain about the future of the temple lot in the center place of Zion. In a revelation given to Joseph Smith on December 16, 1833, the Lord reminded his prophet, there is none other place appointed than that which I have appointed. Neither shall there be any other place appointed than that which I have appointed for the work of the gathering of my saints. So, you guys, I really have a hard time believing that Salt Lake will become the New Jerusalem. I don't think that the church would put so much effort and so much money toward this land, and that they would make these kind of statements. And especially when you consider the visitor center here. You know, why would you? It just, come on. You know, it's pretty clear that our general authorities believe still that the Millennial Temple will be built in this location. Here is an article by Fox 4 in the Kansas City area. 3 faiths around Independence Land where many believe second coming will occur. Of the 3 churches surrounding Temple Lot, the Community of Christ is the only one that has moved away from the belief that Jesus is literally returning to this place, shifting to a more symbolic notion of the second coming. We would not be focused on end times. We are focused on the here and now, McKay said. So the Community of Christ, the larger one that has 250,000 members, they're not so concerned about that these days, about the second coming. But the Latter-day Saints, with 16 million members worldwide, don't own the Temple Lot land, at least not now. As we would say in the Lord's time, everything will work out according to what the Lord would have us do, said Jeremiah Morgan, president with the Liberty Latter-day Saints stake. The smaller 6,000 member Church of Christ, Temple Lot, claims there have been offers to buy the sacred spot. Sheldon, a Temple Lot elder, sees himself as a keeper of the flame of Joseph Smith's revelation. When asked by Fox 4, elders with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints said they're not trying to acquire the Temple Lot ground, but Sheldon said that there have been inquiries as recently as this year. This article was written in 2018. And actually, it's interesting because let's go back here. So this one, okay, in this Wikipedia article, it says as of 2013, membership was at 7,000, so at 7,300. 2013, 7,300. But here in 2018, it just said 6,000 member Church of Christ. So are we to believe that they lost about 1,300 members between 2013 and 2018? I don't know. But I find that interesting. So, okay, so this article written in 2018, Sheldon said there have been inquiries as recently as this year. So that is rather recent. And remember, President Nelson became president of the church in 2018. Yeah, so that would mean that President Nelson, if this is true, unless Sheldon's a liar, that means that President Nelson has made inquiries into purchasing the temple lot. He insists it's not for sale and lives each day keeping his mind ready for the second coming of Jesus Christ right here in Independence. And Sheldon is firm on the question of whether his church would ever sell the temple lot ground to the larger Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It ain't happening. Never will happen. All right, Sheldon, we'll see about that. Those are some pretty bold words. All right, and that essentially, that's the end of my video. So interesting things. Interesting things. I would love it if we could get the Kirtland Temple back. That would be amazing. And it would be even more amazing if we got it and then we were able to remodel it so we could do endowment sessions in there and just everything that you can do in any other temple. Of course, it would also be neat to just keep it as it is. I guess either way it would be good. But even better would be if we could purchase this spot of land and build a temple here. And we actually have all this land down here. For some reason, it's not letting me go to the map, or at least it went black again. Well, no, hold on. Let me try this. Temple lot, Independence, Missouri. So as you can see right here, okay, here's that, this is the temple lot, this piece right here in between these streets. And then it looks like we own, from what I can tell, it looks like we own all this land right here. So if we were able to purchase this, I just wonder if we would build a temple right away, and then if we would start making the complex of temples, the 24 temples that are supposed to be there. I don't know if they have to be, around the temple like this. I don't know if the temple could be built and then the rest of the temples could be built over here. I guess we'll see. Maybe at some point the community of Christ will collapse and will no longer be a religion. Maybe we'll be able to get all this land and then build the millennial temple how it's supposed to be. I don't know, but it looks like there are some things happening, and maybe pretty soon we'll be hearing about them offering up the Kirtland Temple, and maybe after a few years there won't be a Community of Christ or a Church of Christ temple lot. Well, probably not Community of Christ. They'll probably be around for a while, but I don't know. Let's just wait and see. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you ended up liking it, hit the notification bell, Leave your comments, leave all your thoughts, all your opinions, and ideally, if you have sources for additional information, I would appreciate that. And I'll talk to you guys later.